We are live.
Okay, so we just doubled our numbers. We're at 4 now. So am I going to get to see people, or are we doing it the other way?
Yeah, for the live streams, you don't.
Oh, I always get those confused. Well, that's awesome. We got a bunch of people rolling in here, so this is good. But we do have the chat, right?
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm.
Hello,
Hi, everyone.
Joyce. Hello, Vicky. Hello, Inga. Hello, Patricia. Claudia. How are you guys?
Hi.
Ari, good day. Good day
Good
to
day.
you.
Good day.
Good morning from Sacramento. I guess you're right. It is still morning in the western part of the U.S. Well, good morning then.
Hey, Mindy.
What's
Oh, hey,
going on?
G.
Namaste.
Yes, G.
Gee, what's happening? Guy, nice to see you. How are you? Not see you, but at least see your name.
Your name.
Name. All right. Well, it's nice to see several new names here for sure, and more streaming in.
Hey, Marina.
Marina, how
Hey,
are you?
Claudia. I'm at the beach too, Claudia.
Great day on the beach. Yeah.
Hey, Joan.
I'm near a lot of lakes, but I'm not near a beach. But when I feel into a beach, I kind of feel into like an ocean beach most of the time. So, but I do forget that I am near beaches. I just never really get around to going to them much. Let's see.
That's
Leia.
Joan. That's Joan, your student. Hey, Monica. Hey, Elizabeth.
All right. Sorry about that,
Hey.
Joan. You're going to correct me on that when we get together again. That was a botch, a big one. Okay. Elizabeth. And okay, Eustrea. I hope I pronounced that right. If I didn't, you could tell me. I'll try again. But nice to see you. Hey, we got a nice group of people here. 26 people. That's awesome. And a lot of new names.
Mm-hmm.
That's really nice. Really, really nice. On a Saturday, no less.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us on a Saturday.
Yeah, really, seriously. Yeah, I mean, my family doesn't even want to be with me on a Saturday. So just kidding. No, I'm just really kidding. I really have a great relationship with my family. Seriously. Okay. All right. So how many, Maya, are we about where we were expecting for people? So should we give it another minute or two, or should we get going? Because I know we have a lot of questions that people.
Yeah, we have about another probably another 15 or 20 people that RSVP'd,
Okay.
but we can get started and they can always see the replay because we're 7 after.
Yeah.
Right?
I was kind of trying to figure out why I couldn't hear. And I had my ear things
Oh no.
opposite, so they were pointing that way.
Okay,
So it's
that'll
like
do it.
yeah. So this is really good. I can hear things again. So this is good.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
So first, you guys just Franco, let's just do a quick introduction just because some of these people we haven't
That
even met
sounds really
formally at a
good.
meet and greet. So I'll go first. I just want to say welcome, all of you. My name is Maya Jade, and I'm the community host for the Inner Divine Playground. And we're so happy and excited to have you guys here with us tonight for what will be your first Inner Flow Live for some of you. And some of you others have been with us since the beginning. So thank you.
Wow, that was short. I have to follow that.
Well, I'm trying to
All right.
get us
Well,
going
thank
here.
thank you, everybody. I guess you guys know who I am, but in case you don't, and you just accidentally stumbled onto this live call, I'm Franco, and I'm happy to have all of you guys, all that have been here before, and all of you who are coming in for the first time. Ideally, you'll have you'll walk away with a lot of good insight, or if not good, great insight in terms of questions that people have posed that maybe you've been in your lifetime at some point having some questions over. And really, as I believe most of you guys know, this is just really like an open-ended thing. I don't typically look at the questions beforehand, so we'll see what happens when the answers start coming out. Yeah, I feel like that was my introduction. How's that? So
that was good. That was good.
okay.
Thank you. So let me just say this. We have a lot of questions, and thank you for those of you who submitted questions for this inner flow. We may not get to them all simply because we have so many. We likely will not get to them all. We normally don't. But if you do have a question that comes up, please feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to type a question in, and I'll add it to the list if we don't get to it this time. Okay.
All right, I'm buckling in here. I'm getting ready.
Well, okay, before we get started, was there
okay.
was there anything overarching that you wanted to say, or do you feel that will come up potentially later, or do you not at this time, or you may interject later?
Is there some? Are you trying to give me a hint on something here? Because
No. But if something comes up, I will drop a hint to you. But
that sounds good. I do have some things that I feel like I want to say. Oh heck, why not just say it now then? The biggest thing that I'd like to share with everybody, and I feel that at some point or another, most of you guys, if not all of you guys, have had this experience, and that is that it's not an easy thing to do going into this whole new aspect of remembering who you are, and it can often be it could be very tiresome, and it could also be confusing. It could be what's the word I want to use? At times you could be maybe sad or lonely. And I feel the need to share something with you about that, because I've had this brought up in different ways with different people in different conversations. The solitude, the disconnecting that a lot of you guys may have experienced or are experienced or will at some point experience in the not too distant future. I feel it's important to recognize that many, if not all, of the teachers that have walked this earth at one point or another have had the same trials and tribulations that you guys are going through. In some cases, because of the times that they were in, it was pretty hard, because they were viewed the things that they introduced, the way that their belief systems reshaped everything was pretty significant, and it was pretty hard to accept. And so they were oftentimes very isolated, and at times it was hard. It was hard. I mean, I will tell you, just from the channeling that I have done and other things that I know of, I know one of the closest energies that I feel into is the Yeshua energies, and I know that Yeshua had a hard time a lot with having to bring this kind of message into the world, and not always being able to know to whom to trust that with. So he had some wonderful people around him, people that were really, really close, but at times even that wasn't always enough. So I just feel this because I know that a lot of you guys have in one way, shape, or form had a hard time knowing where to turn. And so thank you for those of you who took the leap of faith and have, whether you really, really, really wanted to or not, you have chosen to take this path. And in doing that, you found us, you found this community, and I'm sure other places as well where you can land and you can find your tribe. And so for those of you who are relatively new, please, I encourage you, if you haven't read my book, I'm not encouraging you to necessarily read my book, but if you haven't read my book, you'll know that the first half of my book was written from the perspective of the journey that I took outwardly and the quest that I took inwardly to remember all the things that we're going to be talking about today and then some. But also to relate the story of how it is to do this on your own. At a time back when I was going through it, as well as many of you, a lot of these support systems were not in place. I certainly didn't have a support system, and so I did this entirely on my own, with the exception of obviously the collective that was there to guide me along the way. But they were oftentimes they were tough teachers. So I got at times some tough love from it, but I still managed to get through, in large part because of their support. But please consider, please consider the value that you bring to a community and engaging with others in the community, whether it be through posting or through some of the events that we host, like we host a book club that Marina has so kindly chosen to run with and take up her time and energy. And it happens to be right now the book, the Closet Spiritualist, and ideally the other books that I'm working on right now will be in that mix as well. But there's that. There's the play dating or soul mating opportunity to meet other people in your tribe and become friends with them and have an outlet, not just to share what's going on in your world or insights or cool things that are happening, but also to exchange codes. The thing that I probably don't say enough is that we're all here to exchange energy with each other because we all carry unique codes that may actually help each other remember more. In fact, I know it does, because each and every one of you guys, especially the ones who have been my one-on-one students in the past, have given me a tremendous amount of coding in the experiences that I've had with you guys, and so it's been very mutually beneficial as well. It is part of the nature of this game to be able to come together. I mean, this is all about coming together as oneness, right? In the process of coming together as oneness, we don't just integrate our consciousnesses together. We experience and integrate our stories together and our codes together, and we activate each other. And so, if nothing else, and I mean this very sincerely, if nothing else, from a selfish standpoint, this is the place where you can come and exchange and receive as much as you desire. So please participate when you feel comfortable in the community, because you will find it to be probably one of the best experiences of your life at this point. So I guess that's it. That's what I wanted to start off with. So with that said, I'm ready for the questions. Okay.
Okay. So, okay. So,
Yes.
we hear a lot about raising or tuning our frequency to higher levels in order to connect with our guides or our higher self, or to shift our awareness to a more expanded field. But we haven't heard yet how to do it. How is that done?
Okay. So this kind of gets, I'm everybody who's done these inner flows with me, I'm going to try to keep these answers more brief, so we can get through a few more questions. At least I'll try. So this one is a rather simple question, but in fairness, it also, not a simple question, a question with a simple answer, but in fairness, there's a lot more to it. But for any of you guys who have done the Way of the Inner Child courses, the Way of the Inner Child, the way the course is laid out, and the name of the course, okay, is the Way of the Inner Child. But in all fairness, it's not really the way of the inner child. It's the way as seen or practiced by the inner child. And what that means is that all these, the way is the truth. Okay, the truth is a truth that is universal. I mean, in Taoism, Taoist is, or Tao is the way. Okay, and the truth is spoken in pretty much every in philosophy, every religion, at its core nature, the religions, the beginnings of them, any philosophy, any spiritual teaching. The way is the truth, which are the things that we talk about. But we do it simple here. We do it in a very simple manner. The child energies enables us to get out of our own way, to be able to get, when I say by get out of our own way, I mean, it's not that we intentionally try to self-sabotage everything, but we have a tendency of being so entrenched in the conditions, the social conditions, the belief systems, the behaviors, the patterns that have been instilled in us, that it's hard for us to see straight, to feel things, because a lot of the truth requires experiencing and feeling, and not so much analyzing. So one of the biggest ways that we go about doing this through the way of the child is to just pretend, is to imagine. And we go into much more detail about how to imagine, because we all know how to imagine, even for those who believe that they're somewhat limited in their imagination. Imagination allows us to get beyond those social conditions. It allows us to pretend the things that we can't accept wholeheartedly yet as who we are, in a way that is easy and safe and fun, because the game, this reality, is structured in such a way, it's wired in such a way that it loves that type of energy. If we were all able to strap ourselves into some sort of a suit beyond this one, although this suit will be able to do this in the not too distant future, where we can sense into the frequencies that are all around us, because this is all energy, we would notice two things. One, it's extraordinarily emotional energy, extraordinarily emotional, and what I mean by emotional, I'd be more specific, it's extraordinarily sensual, because it's a creation energy. And two, it's extraordinarily joyful. So if you were to tap into that, you would realize that the way in which this particular game that we're playing loves to communicate and receive and manifest through you is through joy, emotional, blissful joy. And so the best way to do it is to let yourself go and let yourself be a child again. And it is extraordinarily effective, even if it's just for a short period of time. Everything that I have done, everything that I know of today, how I see and experience this reality, has been because I have allowed myself to go into my child again. And of course, there's also the energies of the divine feminine and the divine masculine energies that I hadn't tapped into yet. But the child energies made it all easy for me to understand how to interact with this environment, the game, and how easy it was for me to believe that I actually am a divine intelligence, and to accept that we are all here to remember that. It breaks all the norms down and all the barriers down. So, okay, that wasn't the shortest answer, but ideally that hopefully helps answer that question a little bit.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Okay. So this next question it's long, but I need to read the whole thing.
Okay.
Understanding.
Okay.
It's about NDEs and fractal souls.
Okay.
So, if someone is a walk-in,
yes,
is it possible for don't answer the question. Just don't answer.
Okay, just keep quiet. All right, got it.
I'll let you know. Okay.
Okay.
So if someone is a walk-in,
yes.
Is it possible for a fractal of the original soul to remain? After my near-death experience, I was shown that the fracturing that occurred in that moment was so extensive due to the trauma involved that a small fractal of the original soul stayed behind. While this may not be a problem in and of itself, since we're all fractals of source, I've been shown for years through others in downloads that there's unresolved karmic residue on my mother's lineage 6 to 7 generations back. What I saw was that a version of the original soul has lived out a repeated cycle of the same abuse pattern in every single incarnation. I also witnessed the presence of dark magic being used across timelines, targeting this original fractal and using it as a conduit to interfere with me and my child. Many, including myself and my child, have witnessed a being that moves in and out of my child's field. It's always traced back to this ancestral karmic curse, which has intended to affect me, but because of womb imprinting, appears to have transferred to my child instead. If this soul fragment is still present, can it be released? And if so, would that break the karmic imprint and allow the original fractal to return to source? Is this kind of release truly possible? Go.
Can you go back to that fourth sentence, second word? Wow. Wow. Okay. Hold on a second. So for anybody who knows me enough, when I get like one of these wow questions, I have to, first of all, I have to acknowledge it by giving you a little bit of dragon dust. All right. So here's my little dragon dust for people who don't know what the hell I'm talking about. It's just it's a very special wand that's actually got a dragon in front of it. So, but wow. I say wow because there's a lot of questions in that one question. Okay. So let me start with the first one. Is it likely that there is a fractal aspect of the existing consciousness that left the body? It's possible, but it's highly unlikely. But it's possible. So I don't want to say that it isn't. But typically, if the consciousness that is there originally has chosen to come back to not entertain this body, then it comes back. There's no desire, there's no need for it to be in this particular aspect of the game anymore. It is possible, sure, that it might, a little bit of it may stay back, but I am not aware of that at all. And I can explain that relative to the rest of the questions that were there in a moment. And here's the thing. When a walking comes in, especially, and I say this because I mean, I have experienced that walk-in experience myself. And what I understand and know and remember of the walk-in experience is that when the walk-in comes in, typically that soul that's walking in has a very defined purpose for being here. And it's typically at this juncture in the game, in human history, if you want to call it, the walk-in is here to do something relatively sizable with regard to the ascension or the awakening or the remembering process of this planet. The walk-in that typically comes in is an angelic. And an angelic, for those of you who haven't really heard me talk about this very much, there's an extraordinarily high level of consciousness that comes directly from source. Yes, there is a correlation between the angels and the angelics. They're kind of in the same group, but this is a much different energy of consciousness that we're talking about. But nevertheless, as I've indicated, they're born from source. The angelics are well prepared to come in and do what they're here to do, and also understand what they need to do, if anything, about the lineage energy that the individual is currently carrying, the individual that left, what kind of lineage energy they're carrying. So with regard to that, okay. The lineage energy that you carry comes from, and this is actually covered quite a bit in the online course. At least there's a good solid reference to it. It has to do with how we have kind of misunderstood karma and an original sin. And when we come in, when we're conceived, from that moment on, the avatar body that is being shaped inside the mother's womb is receiving an inordinate amount of information from the environment, whether it's the physical environment, the lineage from the mother, the lineage of the father, and all of their lineages. Okay, so that by the time we take our first breath, we're inundated with information. And I have to add that this is done through a process of which the avatar consciousness takes all of this in. It's like a computer, just whatever you want. It just comes in and it just absorbs. It's like it's like a huge database. Okay, and so the soul, the consciousness, whether it's the original one or what have you, or later on the walk-in, but the one that's the original consciousness that is there to assume that body isn't going to come in until the very, very end, right at the very end. When we're ready to be born, the body and the consciousness or soul integrate literally at the moment of birth. So what happens is that there's a lot of lineage energy. And I'm going to say that within that lineage energy is some heavier energy. And that heavier energy, I have often described it as predatorial energy. And this is an energy that has, for a lot of reasons, gone through a series of, let's call it, generations of lineage energy, okay? And has embedded itself it's a program. I really want to stress that I'm going to kind of intermix these terminologies a little bit, because it's a deep-rooted program inside the energy or the consciousness of us when we integrate or adopt it into our consciousness as we're inside our mother's womb. And that energy tends to it's a heavy energy, but it's not a dark energy. And I really need to make that clear. A dark energy implies that it has to do with evil, an evil aspect of some sort of consciousness. And for some of you who haven't really maybe heard me talk about this much, there is no such thing as good and evil. There is negative and positive energy. There is light energy and there is heavy energy. But ultimately, it's all these energies. You can change the language around it and just say they're programs inside the simulation of this reality. And this is a heavy, deeply rooted one, a rooted one where you don't have to go yourself digging into where it comes from, because it may not have anything to do with your direct lineage. It may not have anything to do with what you have experienced in your life. There's certainly, it certainly can. But if this is one that has been tracing or following its way through generationally through various energy streams, other people, let's call it, then this one's a very deeply rooted one. And what typically happens at that situation is that first and foremost, you have to stop referring to it as a and I'm not saying that this person is, but I'm just saying you have to look at it from a different perspective. Okay, I lived in a home for 6 years that was haunted, and I saw everything that you could possibly imagine, including partial possessions. And I can tell you that most of this energy is a chaotic, desperate energy. Okay, it is kind of gone mad because it's been stuck in this sort of limbo state for a long time. And so what would best serve you to address this energy is to start to see who you are as the light. Okay, is to start to see that you have this incredible shine. Now, I'm not kidding you, because I do this kind of stuff when I've done some shamanic work in extracting this type of energy from people and from places. You have to view yourself as the light, okay? Meaning that you really have to, in order for you to release this energy, you have to see yourself as not the incubator for it, but the gateway out for it. And the way the gateway works is that you have to assume that you are in the light, that not in the light, that you are the light, and allow that energy, whatever it is, whether it's a substance energy with no form or if it has a form, to literally come into your light, be absorbed, and release it. But to do that, I have to tell you that fundamentally you have to go through the process of not just accepting that you are the light, but becoming the light. And that's where the courses really try to simplify the way in which you do that. One of the biggest pieces of 5D integration is the acceptance of who you are. And I can tell you, if you read my book, or if you, or just listen to other people's stories, accepting who you are is, and becoming it, accepting is a big deal. Okay. But then becoming it is a bigger deal. But they're easy to do if you let go. If you start to let go of the things that you believe you're not, and let go of the old patterns and conditions that are holding you down with 3D, that tell you that this is some sort of good versus evil kind of a thing. And that's not to say that that doesn't play out sometimes this way, but that's because you're fostering that condition by giving it that identity. Okay. And as soon as you can see that you are way above that, you can really take care of that sort of predatorial energy. And I know predatorial has a different tone to it, and a lot of people have different definitions of it, but it's basically an energy that is seeking out pure light energy, whether it's, most of the time it's like we will call innocent energy. And innocence isn't just in a physical child, but it's also in the child within us. Okay, because we all carry that light. So you have to be present in that light, because it's going to gnaw at you until you either give into it, which is not what we want to do here, because that is basically what we're trying to get you away from doing, which is to say you're still stuck in that pattern of in a sense being a victim to it. Okay. And owning it, meaning that you are the creator of this whole narrative that you have just massaged through by inheriting this energy. I wish I could be a little bit more specific, but to be more specific would take a bit more time to talk about. But ideally, whoever wrote this question or series of questions can understand that what I'm talking about here is that you, whoever you were or are that wrote it, are in full control of how you decide to shape the narrative going forward. Are you going to be the creator, or are you going to be the observer and ultimately the victim to this? If you do the latter, you're going to continue to bring this energy back in, and it's going to keep gnawing on your energies until you take ownership of your own sovereign temple, who you are as the light. And though this is very general, what I feel you'll get, and again, it is what it is. This is what's taught in the courses, so that you can start to own who you are, your authentic self. It's exactly what I went through in order to not just understand the process, but to walk through it. Whew. Okay. Well, anything there, Maya? Anybody? I don't know.
Do you want to take a water break?
No, I'm good. I'm good. No, absolutely. There are so many layers to that question, but ideally I was able to, this was able to shed some light on it. So.
Yeah, I feel like you did.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. So the next question, how many people does it take to collapse time?
It kind of reminds me of the question, how many people does it take to screw a light bulb, kind of a thing, but I'm sure it's a different thing. It takes one person to collapse time. If you understand, and you do, I know many of you do, if you understand that first and foremost, time is an illusion. So time is a function of the frequencies within which, or the dimension within which we're in. So in 3D, we feel that time totally exists and is a measurement of how we navigate through life. Okay, but as we become more aware and more aware and more aware, and our consciousness expands, and as a result gets activated, and we remember more, um, the awareness the awareness pushes aside time, because by that point you're in 4D, because 4D is awareness. Okay, and at 4D there's just all sorts of awarenesses, but it's the Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness awareness, which I ideally I'll be able to talk about it more, but it's the awareness that makes you realize that we're stepping into not a time space continuum, but a space time continuum. And in that space time continuum, we move into just total space, because time is an illusion. It's just completely an illusion. And part of that illusion, or how to break it down or collapse it, as this person says, it's just to continue to allow your consciousness to expand in the state of awareness, in the stillness. Again, I'm not sure we're going to be able to talk about the stillness piece, but it's been talked about a lot in previous inner flows, and certainly is a big part of a section that we talk about in the way of the inner child. That your awareness that you are presently always present in a now state, that you are at the 0 point of everything, where you are the zero. You are the zero. You're not just in that space, but you're the zero, meaning that everything is always a now for you. Starts to collapse the awareness of the linear time frame, if that makes sense, because it's always going to be now, 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 now. Okay, even though your clock or your watch may tell you differently, it's always for you going to be now, 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 now. And so that's when you start moving into 4D, which is space time, and space becomes more important, which is why, as I've mentioned before to people, it's why now more than ever, time is not acting the same. Time goes every which way. Sometimes a day can feel like a week, and a week can feel like a day, and that could happen simultaneously. It's all over the place, because there is no real sense of time. So that's an indication that we're stepping into 4D, and time is already collapsing, just because it's not acting linear anymore. Okay, that's it. That's all I got for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so there are several questions about this in some sort of a way, one way or another, so I'm going to combine it.
Okay.
And, can you explain the role the galactics are playing in this game, and playing in the role of our ascension into 5D?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna approach this one from two perspectives. I'm going to present it in the 3D perspective, which is the one that tends to be the most obvious one, and the one that people see all the time. And then I'm going to show it from more of a higher perspective, at least a 5D perspective. Okay, so from a 3D perspective, I'm not going to get into what each specific galactic race is all about, because, to be honest with you, I haven't spent a lot of time playing in that frequency, but I can tell you generally what their function is. After you get beyond the sixth dimension, the sixth dimension is a state of nirvana that we would call heaven. Okay, it's a respite. It's a stopping ground. You've done quite a bit in your spiritual quest of evolution. One has. Okay, so you've gone through the first 5 dimensions. And there are many more beyond that, but the sixth one allows you to just sort of enjoy what you have done up until that point, which is so everything that you have manifested up until the sixth dimension, everything is going to be in the sixth dimension, which is why a lot of people who come back from near-death experiences say that this thing they call heaven is exactly the way they had always dreamt it to be, because the operative word is that they dreamt it to be. And so I should say operative words. So in the sixth dimension, it's kind of a stop. And it can be a very long one, at least in linear terms, which there is no such thing in the sixth dimension as linearity. But if we were to try to measure in linear terms, it's a long time. Okay. One could even argue it would feel like eternity. So, but beyond the sixth dimension, you move on to a schooling situation again. But this time it's a little bit different. The schooling that you're going through isn't about necessarily being involved in playing or acting through games that are actually already in progress, or that have been built already, for the sake of evolving more as a spiritual being. It's more that you're starting to get groomed to become creators, true creators of worlds. So in the seventh dimension, it's kind of like it would be equivalent to, it's all like a university type of arrangement. But it's not like an arrangement like a university, but you know what I mean? It's a higher form of higher consciousness. And in the seventh dimension, you're going through a process that would look very similar to being like an intern. And in the eighth dimension, that internship really becomes more of a more hands-on. You're given more responsibility in terms of being able to be more involved in the day-to-day nurturing or management of the games that are being created, or that have been created and are being played in at the moment. And by the ninth dimension, you actually are creating new games. The 10th, 11th, and 12th dimensions really focus more on the evolution of the higher self going into this thing called source. And so I won't get too much into that, except that there's a couple of galactics, civilizations, if you will, that are kind of involved in this process too. That they're sort of like an in-between. So this kind of gets me to the question, the galactic. I had to sort of give you that little bit so that you'd understand that the beings that are going through 7 through 9 are are always going to be the ones that are appearing, at least in this Earth School game, as the galactics. There are, again, a few exceptions to that, 10th and 11th. There's like the Lyrians, who are extraordinarily advanced set of beings who did some seeding here about consciousness to prepare the planet and prepare the beings on this planet for a transition that would be essential as they go into evolving into source. So there was a little bit of, they've been in some of the intricacies of the game in terms of building the intelligence, the infrastructure for that intelligence to come through, which is also tied to what's called the ancient energy. Okay. But to be more specific about, I mean, I laugh because I'm like, okay, I said all of this and I haven't really gotten to the real specificness of this. So what I'm getting at is that, if you haven't already figured it out, the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, the Mantises, the Dromedans, and all these other ends, they are light beings, extraordinarily beautiful light beings. They are not what you see, or what they show themselves to be in transmissions that you might see from other people who channel them. They are not reptilian or human-like or whatever. They're actually truly light beings, okay, that will take on costumes just like this one to play a specific role, to give the experience that you're having more sizzle to it. And especially when it comes to those particular galactic beings that apparently are here to destroy worlds and to prey on civilizations like ours because they came from other worlds. That's all just narrative. That's just all part of the play around the galactic story, in order to, for the most part, in order to distort the real truth of what everyone is here for. Like the Anunnaki, for instance, from thousands and thousands of years ago, were portrayed to have been a civilization of basically barbaric galactic beings, and I can only tell you what I know, that they are in their truest form the most beautiful light beings you could ever imagine. But this is a world of contrast. And in a world of contrast, you get to play the role of anything that you are not. And so this is the opportunity for those beings to be, and they're usually in the 8th dimension, 9th dimension, that those beings get to participate and interact with us through transmissions, or even at times physical one-on-one close encounters, if you want to call it that. So so I feel, and many of them are also responsible for taking for upgrading our systems. So for many of you who go through, have had to go through upgrade, we're all going through upgrades, but for those of you who remember or are tuned to that and experience those upgrades, typically those things happen over nighttime, when your consciousness is loosened and is checked out from your body. Those beings are responsible for that. Now, one thing I will finalize this question, okay, by saying this: all of these beings at the highest level of consciousness that we are, okay, all of these beings are you. In other words, if you can get outside of yourself, to stop looking at yourself as who you believe you are in the 3D sense, you and you start looking at yourself as this extraordinarily massive stream of consciousness that is intertwined by a gazillion, babillion forms of individualness consciousness, everything from the individual higher selves to the collective higher selves to all the sources, and then finally the oneness. If you can see that you have your individuality, but you are everything, you are literally every being that is I just mentioned, then you'll know that when you play this game, and I mentioned this before, when you are playing the game of whatever you are, whoever you are, your DNA is in everything. It's in everything, because everything has been created by you as consciousness. So when I say, oh, this is the game of Franco, I'm not just talking about this. This is all the game of Franco, including the beings that are supporting the game. Now, you would say, well, wait a minute, aren't those beings also playing their own games? Yes. There is an aspect of those beings consciously that come into this game, but they agree to integrate with your consciousness so that you can, in the overall sense of things, control every narrative of every being that is here, okay, supporting your game. So in essence, all those various frequencies that you pick up or see, like the galactics, are just different aspects of you as the greatest divine intelligence ever. I'm not sure if I got that one at the end, but at least I had to give that piece in, because through integration, we come to realize, and this is becoming very important now, that this story starts to come out a little bit more and help you to understand that when you integrate, you're integrating aspects of your consciousness, which we all have diverse aspects of our consciousness, which oftentimes gets, for lack of better words, it often gets demonized as being a disorder. And it isn't. It's us knowing that we have frequencies that make up this consciousness that makes up who we are as these characters that we're playing with. But that's not the only integration we're going to do. And it's not just among our own frequencies, but it's the frequencies of others. It's what enables us to integrate ultimately as one, because aspects of us are in everything already. And so that doesn't end there. We will ultimately integrate into everything. The game, the virtual game that you're in is a living being of consciousness, which is inside of you, inside the you that is the higher self. And so all of this integration happens when you get into the higher levels of 5D. And so you realize that the galactics, which is where we started with, is just basically an aspect of a higher level frequency of consciousness of you. The end.
Yay! I'll clap. Yeah, I'm the only one on here that you can see. Yay.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you.
You know, since you're the only one that's on that can actually provide feedback, just let me know if I missed the mark in anything here, Maya, or that if I so that I can fill in the blanks. But these are extraordinary. They're extraordinary questions that deserve an extraordinary answer that ideally is simple enough to start chewing on. Because there are too many people out there, because they don't necessarily have the filters on that they need to see it from a higher level, convolute these messages so much that people don't know how does the galactics work with supernatural stuff, works with the divine masters, works with all of it. I mean, it's hard to see that when everybody's kind of working off of their own silo. So hopefully, ideally, this has helped some people understand the role of the galactics. So
yeah, and I feel like some of this makes more sense too if you're taking the course, and we talk about a lot of these things in the deep dives too.
yes,
Some of
yes,
these
we do.
questions are duplicates, and so that's why I'm trying to group them together if I can. So okay,
Yeah.
anyway, the next question is, how do I know if a memory I'm experiencing is actually from a parallel timeline, just my imagination, a past life, etc.? How do we discern that truth from internal metaphor?
I don't mean to laugh at the question. The question again falls into all these other questions, just very deep questions. The best way that I can describe it, and it may be a little bit abstract for people or for the person who asked it, is that when you start your process of remembering, you remembering, another word for remembering is imagination. So there was one example, one of the options that this person tossed out was it was in their imagination. And here again, I just, I'm not doing this necessarily as intentionally to plug the courses, but this is where courses really help, because the courses talk about imagination. It talks about how imagination is the bridge by which we use to remember lives that we have lived, not necessarily in great detail, although that can happen, but certainly enough to know that you've lived them, and the experiences and the wisdom that came from them. And so, yes, it is going to be your imagination. It will always be your imagination, but it's not in the way that we define it here in 3D. Again, if you can allow yourself to see imagination as remembrances, a way in which to remember something, then you will be amazed at how expansive that becomes. You'll be amazed at how you begin to feel into the frequencies of that imagination, of that story, of that narrative. Because typically you are recanting, if that's the right word, a remembrance of lives that you live. Remember, there are no such things as past lives. Okay, in this linear world, it feels like there are past lives, but everything is happening in the now. You are living as a, let's call it as a fractal, which I don't really particularly care to use that word because it implies that we are a split off of the source, because we're not. We are and we're not. I mean, we created the source energy, but and we do give a piece of it back into the game, but a lot of times that fractalness implies that we were created necessarily by source, and become a fractal of it. So anyway, sorry, I went off on a tangent there, but what I wanted to say was that when your mind expands and your consciousness expands, you will start to have memories, and memories will, yes, will feel inherently like you lived a certain timeline in this earth school. It will be no different in a memory that you had about something you did a year ago or 10 years ago. Okay, you can feel it energetically as though it was in this lifetime. Okay, but most of the time you will feel it as though it is of this school, but not of this particular lifetime you're in right now, but of a different lifetime that you have lived. But it's a memory. It tends to take a different feel to it and a different frequency to it. It no longer feels like it's an imaginative thing. And the reason why that typically, and the way you know how to distinguish that is because emotionally it will feel more real to you than this world. Okay, and that may be hard for some of you who haven't quite gotten to that point, but for many of you, you've had moments where you've had glimpses, because that's what they are, glimpses of lives that you have or are currently living, and they feel so much more real to your frequency, so much so that in some cases you actually long for it and you call that home. Okay, so you can start to feel what that's like from a different frequency standpoint. That's the best way I can describe it. But the only way you can do that is by allowing your imagination to run free, and allowing yourself to remember that that is the gateway by which you access memories. Okay, and as far as whether it was from a past, quote unquote, past life linearly here, or from another whole aspect of lives that you have lived somewhere else, that again goes back to you will know, just like you had a memory 10 years ago, you will come to know that this was from a different lifetime. Like I've had several of those in the time that I have started to fully remember, and it's clear to me that these things truly happen. I even have vivid memories of those timelines and those narratives, and I know that they were in this school. As far as parallel realities, and this again gets really into a lot of the course material. The parallel realities, it's when you're dreaming, especially when you're dreaming, you get to see a lot of what you're doing in parallel realities. And so if you want to use dreaming as a way to reference something that you might be glimpsing into while you're in your dream state of your, how do I call it? The awakened dream state, which is what we are in right now. We believe that we are awake, like, physically awake, but we're actually dreaming right now, in the spiritual sense. And so you can reference or use your dreams in your dream state, sleep state, to give you a better sense of what you are doing in other parallel realities. And there's a lot more to that than what I said, but we would go off on a tangent for at least a good 10, 15 minutes. But ideally, that's how you get to differentiate. I got to tell you guys that wonderful, wonderful, beautiful questions. A lot of this gets to the heart and soul of why it's important that you start to embrace these frequencies that you have, and the ones that I feel are so attuned to this are the child energies, because the child energies, as you can imagine, loves to play in games and loves to imagine and loves to wonder. I mean, it's just so natural for it to be able to tune into these channels and get all of these answers that you're seeking. But you have to reach a certain level of consciousness, which you have to do by getting comfortable with the idea that everything is in your imagination, which gets into, again, a lot of the course material that we go through. So ideally, this gives you a little bit of a blueprint.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that one. Okay.
Yeah. Did I get, was that going to be a clap? I'll take it, even though it was just like, oh, okay. All
okay.
right.
So, why are so many ascended masters often depicted in the cross-legged position, and how can taking this posture help us in the modern times?
I don't know if I've ever, I mean, most of these questions I've never heard before, but I've never heard this question before. But it's a great question, because it's one that I actually played with for years, because for years I was very much of a very methodical person when it came to meditation, the way that we typically view meditation. I've mentioned before that it was not uncommon for me to do 4 or 5 hours of meditation. And I'm saying that not to brag, but because I look back at it and I go, wow, I could, that's just way too much. That was just way too much. Okay. And part of the reason why this question is so pertinent to that is because there's no way in hell, excuse my French, okay, no way in hell I was going to be in that position for 5 hours. I mean, I wouldn't be able to walk after them. I wouldn't even be able to feel my legs after that. Now, some people are a little bit more limber and they can do that position quite a bit, but it's not an easy one. So here's the thing. I know. I absolutely know what that position is all about. But here's a great example of a metaphor. Okay. The position is supposed to give you a sense of a triangular shape. Okay. And in the triangular shape is supposed to give you an awareness that you are a triangle of a set of 3 triangles that exist within your field, your toroidal energy field, that enables you to do a crap load of things with your consciousness, not the least of which is to create gateways of conscious interaction with higher dimensions, if you know how to use yourself as a triangle. Okay. So I truly can tell you that in what I do for meditation is I lay down, and at many times I will cross my legs in that way. And it is so much more comfortable. It is so much more comfortable because I create that triangular shape. But even if I didn't, it's just the awareness of knowing how to use my consciousness as the 3rd triangle in a sacred geometrical way in which to allow for certain things to happen, certain energies to happen, which I have talked about a little bit, like when I went out to Egypt and I realized the 3 triangles, the smallest one is really representative of us. We have the same three triangular arrangement that once we know how to use it properly, will explode our consciousness into a level that we can't even imagine here and ultimately take us back home. But that is to represent and to, I suppose, to enact a frequency and activation that you can do in different ways. You don't have to do it that way. But to me, it was a clear clue that was left behind. And to be honest with you, I say clear, but to be fair to everybody else, I didn't realize the connection between that position until I went to Egypt and I stared at the pyramids for like 10 hours straight. So So in fairness, it's not clear. It's not as clear, but hopefully it will now be metaphorically clear to you that it's supposed to represent you as the third triangle in your toroidal energy field, a field that can literally access everything in the infinite stream of the field. Okay, that's it.
Okay. So in summary, what matters is the internal state, not the external posture. I mean, it's great if you want to sit cross-legged, but it's not necessary because it's more the internal state.
I mean, I just feel like you could have right there,
Okay.
right there. You just summed it up in like 3 seconds. But yeah,
Well,
brevity, like I said, is not my strong suit. I'm not gonna try. So okay, but thank you for summing up. Yes, exactly. That was. I wish I would have been able to say that. 10 minutes.
What you said was perfect. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the next question, and this one has been asked multiple times, but I'm going to ask it. I'm going to ask it again because several people asked a version of this.
Okay.
Can you give a quick definition of the themes of 3D, 4D, and 5D? It feels like 3D is reaction, 4D is transformation, and 5D is creation. Is that close?
Yeah, it's pretty close. Pretty close. A couple of different ways of looking at that question, but but after that very nice description of what I just said in 10 minutes, I'm going to try to take a piece out of your book there, Maya. 3D is reactionary. 3D is the space by which we play in the realm of manifestation, okay, and space. We get to experience space in its 3D depth way, okay. So in 3D, we react to that space. We react to everything in that space, everything, and because of that, we trap ourselves into believing that we're constantly chasing those things that are being formed in 3D. We're constantly behind, and again, for those of you who haven't necessarily been able to do the courses right now, we talk a lot about being behind versus being ahead. We've even probably talked about this in the inner flows a little bit, but so we always react, because when you react, you're always behind. Period. End of story. And we're reacting to time, we're reacting to other people's delusions or illusions, always reacting, never, ever getting very far, because we're constantly feeding the thing we're reacting to. In 4D, I suppose it is transformational. I believe that was the term that the person used, but I'm going to just call it awareness. Because in that awareness, you do start to transform. If I'm using the correct word that person was implying, awareness in 4D is where you start to realize, at least in this game, that this is an illusion, that you're not who you are, that these things, these snippets of all the things that you get to remember, whether all the stuff we were just talking about, the galactics and past lives and parallel lives, all these things start to come into your awareness. But there's also more to it. There's the awareness that in general, take all past lives away, take all the dimensions away, and you realize that you're some form of frequency, of some sort of energy, whether you want to call it the divine masculine, the divine feminine, the divine child, all three, because it's not either or, it's all of them. And so we start to realize that there's something much greater than ourselves. We call that at times the Christ consciousness, which is the awareness of who we are, not as Yeshua, but as actually two parts of this frequency, the divine feminine and the divine masculine. There's a feminine aspect of the Christ consciousness. There's a masculine aspect of it. And this could be called Buddha consciousness too, depending on where you're at. So 4D is awareness. It's the state of remembering that you're in a dream. When it comes to this game, it's a state of remembering that you're in this dream. You may not know what the hell that means at first. You might feel it. You may have had all sorts of different experiences that prod you to keep moving forward. But it's the awareness that brought all of you guys here. Okay. So awareness is 4D. Is it transformational? Of course it is, because you're going from letting go of the identity of what you've had in your entire life, that you are this body, to realizing that the body is just one tiny aspect of the whole game that you're playing, much less who you are outside of this game. So I would still call it awareness over transformational, unless you can articulate the transformational piece well enough to yourself. So the 5D is creation. Yes, it's creation, because at that point, you know who you are, you know where you are, you know from where you are playing the game in terms of the stillness, you know what to do there. Okay, you know that you are all these things. Okay, and so you're creating. And yes, you create, as we talk about it quite extensively in the courses, you create through your imagination, and then you manifest in your 3D world or your 4D world, as we are now. And so there are, it's just a little bit more blown out version, but yeah, that's the person that asked that question is close. And if I could just bring back the answer sort of that I had earlier. When you look at it from time and space, you're looking at it as 3D is time, space. Time, the illusion of time dictates everything. To 4D, where it becomes space, time, where time starts to really take a backseat to the spatialness of everything, the now. Everything's kind of moving in a very nonlinear way. To 5D, where everything just becomes space, and so time completely goes away. And that's where you have the experiences of never aging, reverse aging, and all those wonderful things, because time is just an illusion. We really, and once we understand it and reprogram our consciousness, we start to let go of the byproduct of that belief system, which is that we age. We don't. So yeah, that's it. Maya, do you want to sum it up in about 5 words or something?
No, that was perfect. Yay.
Yay. All right.
I'm working on the reverse aging piece already. I'm playing with that. We've already shaved off a couple of years there.
All right. Fantastic.
Okay. The next question. I apologize to the person that submitted this one, because the first part is really, there seem to be some words missing. I'm not even going to try to say it because it's confusing. So can you sum up the law? Can you explain the law, as above, so below, as inside, so outside? I'll just leave it there.
As above, so below.
Yes.
Okay. This has been a somewhat, as with most of these expressions, a somewhat misleading observation, because in its deeper sense, the above is meant to be really the below, and the below is really meant to be the above. But here's how, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. For me, and I'm going to use that as context, but I'm going to try to just explain it this way. Everything that exists in your world and how it's playing out for you comes from a state of awareness that goes within. And I mean, I literally could just leave it there, okay? Because it's important. This just gets back to just the previous question of how 3D you react to stuff. So you react to the out there. And so the out there, ultimately, you will reflect back to you who you are, okay? Well, what you know, or how you perceive yourself, okay? So we oftentimes look at the out there and conclude that the out there is, yes, it's showing us something about ourselves, but we're still using it as a way in which to to guide our awakening in some fashion, that in other words, the world sucks, so you buy it. You buy it, and it becomes your definition of your life. Okay, maybe not completely of your life, but enough of your life that you sort of get consumed by it. So what happens is that, as I said before, you have to look at it the other way around. In the courses, we talk about contrast, and this is an extraordinarily good example of contrast. You have to let go of everything that's happening outside. I mean, not like let it go, like, you just stop functioning. I mean, you still function in that world, but there's an expression called being in this world, but not of it. And the not of it is that you're experiencing the remembrance of who you are inside. So I always say, as below, so above. That's my way of saying it, because it makes more sense to me, and it puts the focus back on the inner awareness that you go through of remembering who the hell you are. Because the moment that you remember who you are, truly remember, and you embrace that remembrance, is when everything out there, the as above piece, changes. Now, I know that in certain ways, in certain philosophies, they sort of say this, but it's still rather nebulous. At least for me, it always has been. So I've always, just like with everything that doesn't make sense, I always use the contrast to it, and it makes more sense. As below, so above. If you keep that in your remembrance, you will always come back to the singularity, the still point within everything, which is that everything comes back to you. You, the awareness of who you are, not who you've been told you are. Although you can live the part of who you are and still live this life the way you want to live it. But that's how you change the pattern a bit, to change the narrative. As below, so above. That's my 2 cents on it, and I'm sticking with it. So anything you want to add to that, Maya, or are you good?
I'm good. Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Yay.
Yay.
So two questions answered without you summing it up in 5 words. Yeah.
Actually, I only summed up one question. And okay.
Yeah, it was really good too.
Okay. So I feel like, okay, just before I forget, to let everyone know that there is a recording after this event. It goes into the event space. I saw someone post that question. Yes, all recordings are available in the event space after the event is done. You can go back and watch it there. Okay, so the next question is, can you please talk about the background people, the ghost people? Why do they need to be here? Do they have a soul? Why are they angry? How can you tell them apart from a regular person?
Okay. Okay. So I only do that because it's just like, I thought that it was going to be that one question. And then it went on, and then it went on, and then it went on. Background people. Easy way to describe this. Okay. And it's really, imagine yourself playing a game, a digital game. Okay. And so all those characters in the game, that you just kind of breeze by in the game are just there to fill the program, which is what this is, the simulation, with aesthetics, which means, give it life, breathe life into it. Because imagine, if you would, that you were to go outside and there's no cars. I mean, there's cars, but there's no people in the cars. You go to the grocery store, there's no people. You go to the events, you go walking down Main Street or downtown or somewhere, no people at the games, no people. There's not even people playing the games. Okay. So, you would immediately start to figure something weird is happening here. So the extras are here to give substance and life and breath to the experiences that you're having. But they also do a lot more than that too. I mean, the extras can also be very good at playing extraordinarily hard narratives that you're not really happy with. People and events that you see a lot more globally, if you will, but it could be also micro. of people, you know, being tortured or killed or in pain or sad or suffering or in fear. They play those roles too, as well as those that inflict that energy onto those extras, because again, it's all part of the experience that you're having in order for you to ask this one amazing question, or to have this one amazing observation, which is there's got to be something more to this effing life than what I'm experiencing right now. Okay, that is probably the one question that ultimately activates the huge remembrances for most people. I have actually gotten a little bit more potty mouth lately, but I won't go into it because it would have been really nice to use it there. But that's what the extras do. That's what the extras do. They do it extraordinarily, just like in a motion picture movie. There are all these extras. They're doing it because they want to be part of this experience, because this experience is extraordinarily huge for the advancement of consciousness throughout not just this dimension, but every dimension. We are creating a new consciousness in what we're doing here, that's based off of contrast, based off of duality, based off of things like fear. And we're taking it to ideally to a higher level of consciousness where we can create even more and experience even more and grow even more. But we do it here as a testing ground because we turn all the spigots off and we forget everything. And if we can somehow manage to remember everything without blowing ourselves up, which has not always been the case, we've had a great track record of blowing ourselves up a lot. But if we don't do that, and we manage to get a substantial amount of consciousness out of this game with a new sense of awareness that has never existed before, then this will be a huge deal for all involved. So the extras want to be part of that. They want to be part of that. They want to have that on their, let's call it their resume, because eventually they're going to be playing the primaries in other games. And so they build up their portfolio or resume, if you will, by all of these experiences that they're allowed to have in this game. Do they have souls? Absolutely. They have consciousness. Everything has consciousness. Okay. I refer to souls as consciousness. But they're the same thing. If you want to use soul, that's fine too. How do you differentiate them? Well, it's interesting. I could tell you that, like, if you talk to somebody who can see auras, they oftentimes will see a lot of people that don't have auras around them. That's not to say that they don't exist, okay? But that's one way of knowing whether or not this is a full-fledged supporting or primary actor in a game versus just extras. It's not that they don't have auras, it's just that you don't see the color aura that they represent, because our filters, no matter what they may be for the person who has these psychic abilities, are not picking up that aura. There's just no color, no aura around them. And that's one way. But of course, we don't all see auras. So how do you know about how to pick them out? The best way that I can tell you that to help you to understand who's an extra or who's not is, if a person, place, or thing, but primarily a person, is in your life, whether it be to support your experience in what you would call a positive way or a negative way, being a really, pain in the ass antagonist, okay? If that person is there and is affecting you emotionally, okay, then chances are, and they stick around for a while, for sure, okay, then they are most definitely not an extra, okay? Extras can have some parts. You can go to a counter and you can talk to somebody and get an order done. You can see them walking on the street. You can touch them. They can feel them. They have avatar outfits, but the way that you know whether they're an extra or not is typically by the way that they are in your life. If they tap into a deep level of emotional energy of love primarily, but also fear. But fear is a flavor of love too. We could, if we wanted to go there sometime, we could talk about that. But yet then they are supporting actors, and so they are players in your game, but they're also playing in other games as well, and they are not extras. I believe I answered most of it. Did I miss anything?
No. But we did have a follow-up question come in. And the question is, are the extras you're referring to the same as NPCs?
Yes. Yay! I did it.
Wow.
One answer.
Wow.
Yay!
Yay.
Yay!
Yay. Okay.
I love yes or no questions.
Okay. So we are just we're at 8:28, so or whatever time 28 where you guys are. 8:28 p.m. here.
Yes.
So I feel like that's all we have time for now, because the next question will require some minutes for sure.
Okay.
It's not a yes or no question.
Okay. Okay. Well, then ideally this will give people more incentive to want to come back and do this again. And again, honestly, folks, I mean this so sincerely. I love your questions. They're amazing. I had many of those questions in my world a long time ago when I was going through my transitioning of awakening, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. It will come so much more naturally to you once you tap into the frequencies that you already have in you, but you have forgotten how to use. And the best, in my opinion, one of the best ways, and not the best way to do it, is through the frequencies of the child, which, yes, I mean, if you ever have a chance and would desire to do this, which I know all of you do, take the course of the inner child. These things will start to blow up in your world. I mean, if nothing else, you'll have more questions, but for sure you'll have a ton of answers. Okay. So, okay.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Fairy dust for everybody. Not fairy, dragon dust, dragon dust. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Ciao. Enjoy the next couple of weeks before we see each other again. Okay. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.